Hey everyone, Matt Perry here with Perry B Filming and Photography, and today I want to talk about cell phone photography. Will it put us all out of a job? And if you have a nice camera phone, should you even bother hiring a photographer? Obviously those are extremes, and as someone who takes pictures for a living, I have a very specific view on that, but I thought I'd take today as a chance to compare the 5D Mark III versus Samsung's latest phone, the Galaxy S9 Plus. I'll also probably throw in the Rebel T5i, which I'm filming on right now. Take a couple photos of similar setups and just compare, one, how the photos look, and two, maybe talk about some of the pros and cons of each setup. So let's get started. Alright, now that we're done taking photos, it's time to take a look at the results. I was debating whether or not to edit the phone photos, but I thought that it would be unfair to compare unedited versus edited photos. But on the other hand, most people don't edit their phone photos outside of maybe an Instagram filter. So I figure I'll show both, and then we'll look at the DSLR photos as well. So this first one here was used, this first photo was taken using the live focus mode. And this is the Galaxy's version of creating bokeh or a portrait mode on the iPhone. And what it does is it tries to throw the background out of focus. And so here's just a quick look before and after the editing. I didn't change much, just a little bit with the brightness sliders and maybe added a little bit of vibrance. Here's another one with live focus. This one I used the camera phone's Pro mode, which is actually pretty cool. It allows you to adjust the shutter speed, the aperture, and the ISO, which is something I'll dive into later, but it gives you a lot more control, similar to a DSLR. Unfortunately, you don't get quite as much bokeh in the background. Here's another one with the Pro mode. And then I took a few with the auto function, which again worked okay. And so now let's take a look at the photos that were taken on the DSLR. Now this was taken on a 70 to 200. And the first thing that I notice is that the troll character kind of blends more smoothly into the surroundings. There's not that stark in focus, out of focus change. Again, then I switched over to the 50mm and played with the 1.4 aperture and got a little carried away with it. I mean, realistically, if I were shooting this troll for a product or for print or anything, I wouldn't use 1.4 because it's such a shallow depth of field that it's throwing things out of focus that would probably be better left in focus. But I did this more just to show how the aperture effect really should look when taken with the real camera. And then this one right here was actually taken with the Canon T5i Rebel. So even, not a pro camera, but still a DSLR, still has the much more smooth bokeh effect. And then for these last couple of photos, we'll start with the camera phone. I moved the troll forward to try to create as much of the bokeh effect and that out of focus effect as I could. And I know I've said bokeh like a dozen times, and that's not the only thing that makes a photo good. But since phones are starting to add their portrait mode, and that seems to be the #1 thing they're trying to add, I thought I would address where it lands, where it falls short. So here's an example of the portrait mode, and I had moved the troll. Again, there's just that hard edge around his hair where you can, I think the phone probably can't tell what it wants to keep in focus and what it shouldn't. And then even if I moved them and used Pro mode, still a little bit of the out of focus look in the background. Not nearly as much as using the real DSLR. So what's the final verdict? Am I going to be replacing all my DSLRs with camera phones? Probably not. While the camera phones are, I will say I was impressed with its capabilities. The live focus or portrait mode did a decent enough job, and if you have it set up correctly, like this photo I took with Kayla, it's pretty believable. We were lucky enough that she was pretty far removed from the background, so the phone didn't have to decide what's in focus, what's not in focus, and what should be what. It was pretty distinct. So it actually comes out looking fairly believable. And the Pro mode was impressive too. It allows you to control the shutter speed, which is one of my biggest agitations with, I think I had the Galaxy S5. And I was really annoyed that, it almost seemed to default to opening up the shutter as much as possible in low light situations. And sometimes that just doesn't work. Sometimes I'd rather have a little bit of a grainy photo that's, sharp as a grainy photo can be, versus something with a lot of motion blur because it couldn't take the ISO up any higher. So the Pro mode allowing you to choose what to crank up and what to crank down was great. But all in all, I was impressed. I think for just something, on you, if you see a cool landscape or something you want to take a picture of, I think it's great. I don't think your new one's going to use it to take photos at a wedding. I don't think you're going to want to take your headshots with it, although that'd be a fun experiment to see if, what kind of results we could get. And honestly, I didn't think at any point in time it was going to replace my camera, my real cameras. I bought the phone without even looking into the camera specs. But all in all, I'm impressed. I think it's been forever since I bought a new phone, so I didn't realize how advanced the cameras had gotten. So to wrap up for real, I was pleasantly surprised with the capabilities. I'll certainly think about using my camera phone more. Not for anything professional, but for something cool I see around town, absolutely. That being said, if there's something important that has to be captured, it's always going to be the DSLR. Alright, so, I don't know, tell me what you think. I don't really care. No one comments on this anyway.